use phrases in life. They make conversation more interesting and stories more vibrant. But when it comes to death, most of the euphemisms that we have for it are so we can avoid the thought of death. There are hundreds upon hundreds of phrases and euphemisms out there, and most hark back to one religion or another. In a better place, with the angels, resting in peace, are all examples of religious euphemisms for death. But today we're looking at 10 non-religious euphemisms for death and where they come from. Before we begin, please subscribe, like and share. It really helps our videos get found and distributed by the YouTube algorithm. Now let's talk death euphemisms. To fall off the perch. Birds have become closely tied to the concept of death, particularly as miners previously used them as early warning systems for gas leaks. Up until the 1980s, British miners would bring canaries down into the mines with them, as even a faint hit of gas would cause the canary to faint or die, inevitably falling off their perch. It is one of the more whimsical ways to describe death. Kick the bucket. Contrary to popular belief, there is no evidence to support that this phrase is associated with taking one's own life, as is popularly believed. Rather, in the 16th century England, a bucket was actually a frame that hung butchered livestock. It's thought that as animals were hung from the bucket, their swinging carcass would knock the sides with their feet, leading to the birth of the phrase. Pushing up daisies. This phrase highlights the difference between being alive and being dead. Since daisies are often part of a weed, if you're pulling them up from above, then you're alive. But if you're pushing them up from underneath, you would have to be buried and therefore dead. Darwin Award winner. Okay, so this one's one of my faves, but I don't get to say it as much as I would like. It basically means that they proved Charles Darwin's theory of evolution right because their stupid actions led to their death, thus ridding the species of an unfit specimen. Pass away. This must be one of the oldest euphemisms known in English. It was coined in 15th century England, when most people would believe that the departing of the soul of a dead person was a very literal physical event. Indeed, passing away didn't mean dying as we know it now. When wakes were held for a recently deceased person, the attendees believed that the dead person could hear and comprehend everything that was being said. It was only later, when the funeral rites were complete, that the dead person passed away and began their journey towards heaven or hell. As such, pass away wouldn't have been considered a euphemism back there, but merely a literal description of events. To bite the dust. This term became popular from American Western films in the late 1930s, in which the characters frequently bit the dust. That is, they were shot or shoved off their horses, landing headfirst into the dusty ground. Bought the farm. There are two ideas of where this phrase came from, but they both come back to the US military. The first suggestion was put forth in 1955 edition of American Speech, and is the idea that when a jet crashed onto a farm, the farmer may sue the government for compensation. That would generate a large enough amount of money to pay off the farm's mortgage. Hence, the pilot paid for the farm with his life. The second idea suggests that if a serviceman was killed in action, his family would receive a payout from the insurance that the service personnel were issued. This would be sufficient enough to pay off the family's mortgage. Either way, someone was paying off something. Snuffed out. This one is more of a metaphor, you could say, as fire and flame have often been linked to life. Back in the day, you would extinguish a candle's flame with a candle snuffer. They were very proper back then, none of this simply blowing out a candle flame. Thus, snuffing out a flame went on to mean snuffing out life. Belly up. Belly up has meant dead or dying since the 18th century, and is generally assumed to come from the way that dead or dying fish float belly up in the water. Croaked. People who die are said to have croaked because of the croaking sound they make on their deathbed. When the verb croak entered the English language in the 15th century, it meant to utter a deep, hoarse, dismal cry, as a frog or as a raven, according to the Oxford English Dictionary. The sound could be made by a human as well as an animal, and in the early 19th century, the verb took on a slang sense of dying, according to the Slang Dictionary. In 1873, Slang Dictionary from England cites croak, to die, from the gurgling sound a person makes when the breath of life is departing. There are so many euphemisms out there. What's your favourite? And which ones do you use the most? Let us know in the comments. Go ahead and give us a like if you enjoyed this video. Now go talk death.